is on health repercussion of child marriages on Middle Eastern mother and their children. This research was conducted by myself and Dr. Hassan. And the basic, before starting this, let me introduce myself. I am a mid-career professional and a co-founder and CEO of Youth Advocacy Council. Youth Advocacy Council is a youth-led organization which actually work on evidence-based research and utilize artificial intelligence and digital technology to accelerate Sustainable Development Goal and Agenda 2030. Currently, I am a doctoral candidate in development studies at College of Humanities and Development Studies in Beijing, and also teaching at National University in Pakistan, and a member of advisory group for Civicus based in South Africa, where I provide technical and strategic support to oversee Global Solidarity Fund. Prior to that, I worked with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with government of Pakistan, and I led several projects across Southeast Asia and Africa with different donors and multilateral agencies. I actually hold a Master in Development Policy from KDI School of Public Policy and Management, and an MPhil in Rural Development, and a Bachelor in Agriculture with specialization in plant breeding and genetics. And so far, I have been awarded different awards and scholarship from KDI School, from Korean government, from Asia Europe Foundation, by British Council, and recently I was finalist for Asia Pacific Social Innovation Award by the Taiwanese government. So the basic background and the motivation about this child marriages, early child marriages. If we see the statistics, globally, 1 in every 5 girls is married or in union before reaching the age of 18. In the least developed countries, this number doubles, like 40% of the girls are married before reaching the age of 18, and 12% of girls are married before reaching the age of 15. When we talk about MENA region, the Middle East and North African region, nearly 24% of the incident of child marriages occur in that particular region. Even though this region, the percentage of child marriages is much lower than other Asian countries in African region, but still, because of several other socio-economic and political reasons, these incidents has been increasing. And if you see, for instance, case of Yemen, the incident is 40%. Other countries, including like Egypt, it also provide a fertile environment for widespread of these practices, especially after the stance of political and social upheaval in post-2001 Spring Revolution. Similarly, the terrorist group of Islamic State that occupy parts of Iraq and Syria since 2014 have been using gender-based violence, including forced marriages, as a weapon of war. So it has actually escalated the incident in this region. When we talk about the literature, 3 main drivers are actually perpetuating these child marriages: the poverty, the reinforcing social ties, and offering behavior protection against rape and sexual activities. Even majority of the previous literature has covered single or pool of countries from South Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa, like 80%, more than 80% of the global figure originate from these regions. However, there has been very little or no empirical evidence exist which has covered MENA region or a single country inside a region. So therefore, we were actually looking at some of the determinants and to ascertain the impact of child marriages on selected health indicators for women, such as antenatal care, having children who later died, like under 5 mortality rate, and contraceptive use, and for children such as stunting, wasting, and under 5 mortality across 3 countries, including Egypt, Palestine, and Sudan. So About the sample, we use a cross-sectional data set for these three countries, Egypt, Sudan, and Palestine, based on multiple indicator cluster survey that is being administered by UNICEF. And these, the cluster level were unique for each country based upon the original data collection procedure and its availability. For instance, the three stages in Egypt were individual, region, and governorates. For Sudan, they were individual, states, and areas. For Palestine, the data are clustered across individual, governorates, and areas. So there was, a diversity of different data set, and their methodology was quite different from each other. The time span was also a bit different depending on the recently available data from UNICEF. For instance, for Egypt, we used the 2014 version of the household survey. And for Sudan and Palestine, we used 2010 version of the survey. And the full sample includes women who were married at the age of 24 or less, where part of the sample is actually, disentangled into women who were married before reaching 18 years old. So the sample size was 13,993, which we refer as a control group. And the women who were married between age of 18 and 24, the sample size was 12,107. So they were referred as reference group. About the model specification, we use a logistic multiple regression to estimate the impact of early child marriage on health of infants and young mothers. So the dependent variable in our model are the proxies for infant and women health indicators, such as infant health status or stunting, height for age, wasting, weight for age, and child mortality, like children who died at the age of 5 or younger. And for young women, health profile are represented by having children who later died or whether they had antenatal care. So these were some of the variables that we used. Since due to nature of the complexity of our research and some of the constraint that we have on selecting these variables, we select variables based on their availability across these countries' dataset. The fixed part of this model consists of the intercept, beta 0, the overall mean of the that has been used for the health indicator, and beta 1 as the coefficient of a variable of interest, such as child marriage, women married at before reaching 18. And the random part of the model is composed of mu I, level 2 random intercept, and the I and J level 3 random intercept within an individual level. And the control variables to account for socioeconomic vulnerabilities that affect the health of married women and their children. So we use maternal age, maternal literacy, child weight at birth, husband polygyny status, like how many wives he has other than her, and level of income, exposure to information while acquiring radio, television in the household, and finally the living area where she is living. So these are the list of variables and its specification. Like we used 15 variables, including child marriage, stunting, wasting, child mortality rate, and children who actually died later, the use of contraception, antenatal care, maternal age, maternal literacy, child weight at birth, and wealth index quintiles, and polygyny status, living area, and access to radio and television. So we had this table which actually described the differences among children health indicator of the two women groups. So we have three countries from different years, and we disintegrate them into two groups: the women married at the age below 18 years, and the women who were married between 18 to 24 years old. So first of all, we saw the overall prevalence of child marriages. And if you see, Egypt was actually at the top with 63% of the overall child marriages among all sample size, followed by Sudan, and then Palestine was actually having 47% of the child marriages. So it was much lower than the two countries in the sample. We also found some interesting um, phenomena. For instance, Sudanese women who were married before reaching the age of 18 tend to give birth to children with higher health vulnerability compared to their counterparts in Egypt and Palestine. And the percentage of stunted, waist, and underweight Sudanese children are 24.8%, 18.74%, and 8.56% of the total number of born children. These figures are relatively smaller for Egyptian children, and while Palestinian children are performing the best in terms of their health status, since only 5.9% and 1.89 and 1.73 of the full sample of the Palestinian children are stunted, wasted, and underweighted, respectively. When we compare these numbers with women groups who were married between age of 18 to 24, because there are two groups across the countries who were married between 18 to 24, we found that in the cases of Sudan and Palestine, the difference regarding the fourth health indicators are not significant. However, in case for Egypt, children of early married women experience higher health vulnerability compared to children of elderly women. For instance, the number of stunted children is nearly double those who were born to elderly women, married women, such as 523 children of early married women have died between the age of 0 to 5 years compared to the total number of 202 dead children of the other women group. So this was kind of interesting finding. Now, if we see the demographic and health statistic of the women, again, we have women married under the age of 18 and women who were married between 18 to 24 years. So what we found, the prevalence of child marriages under the age of 18 across these three countries was, again, Egypt was actually having 62%, followed by Sudan, where the incident was 59%, and then Palestine was having 46%. So the pattern was a bit similar to what we had in the previous. However, in terms of educational attainment, Palestinian women are performing better in terms of educational attainment, wherein only 9% of the early married women in the sample are non-educated, relative to nearly 22% of Egyptian women and 57% of Sudanese women. Nearly 32% of Sudanese and Egyptian women who were married before 18 have had a child who later died, relative to 15% of the Palestinian women. So there was a big kind of difference between these countries related to the child mortality. The largest percentage of the women who were early married have received antenatal care are located in Palestine, reaching a value of approximately 98% compared to the value of 74 and 84% of the women in Sudan and Egypt, respectively. So it means that they have received the antenatal care. The Palestinian women are having more, access to those services, health services. Also, the larger prevalence of husband polygamy exists in Sudan, followed by Palestine, then Egypt. These variables, having children who later died, a number of women who gave birth, contraceptive use, living area, and these status were noticeably different when comparing the reported statistic between early married and elderly married women groups across country. For instance, the number of early married women have had children who later died are 260, 2,250, and 842 in Egypt, Sudan, and Palestine, respectively, relative to the elderly women who similarly have birth to children who later died, and their statistics were a bit lower compared to the first group. So now if we see the regression result um, related to stunting, wasting, and child mortality for both genders across these three countries, we can see that the child marriage in Egypt are more likely than women who were elderly married to have children who are stunted, because the odd ratios were, like you can see, at confidence interval at 95%, they were 1.416, and the wasted was 1.46, and they have high mortality rate where the odd ratio are 5.7. And as well as early married women from Sudan and Palestine tend to have higher odd ratios of children mortality relative to other women groups. And if we see the children who were born to early married Palestinian women are more likely to be stunted relative to other children. When we adjusted the maternal age, the maternal literacy, child weight at birth, wealth index, parental polygyny, and living area, child marriage is significantly associated with high stunting ratio for Palestinian children, where the ordinal ratio was 1.2 at 95% confidence interval. However, children from all countries tend to have a higher mortality when their mothers are married before reaching the age of 18, since the ratio was 1.84 at 95% confidence interval. And if you see for Egypt, Sudan, Palestine, respectively, the statistics were kind of significant, very significant. If they married earlier than reaching the age of 18. If we compare this with the children who have actually later died across these three countries, the child marriage actually propel negative health repercussions for women in all countries, wherein early married women are more likely to have children who later die due to other women groups. And we can see some of the uh, uh, statistics who were actually, were highly significant across all groups. So the high prevalence also hold in all countries after adjustment for maternal age, maternal literacy, child weight at birth, and other variables, and exposure to information via possessing radio or television in the household. Finally, the child marriage is significantly associated with decreased likelihood of receiving any form of antenatal care in Egypt before and after adjustment for other control variables. And for Sudan and Palestine, the results are similar to those of Egyptian early married women after adjusting for other control variable with the ratio of 0.867. And this was actually kind of a key lesson for us as well. So what we have actually got from this research: more than half of the interviewed women across Egypt and Sudan have been married before reaching the age of 18, while nearly 46% of Palestinian women have been married earlier. In general, Palestinian women are performing better in terms of educational attainment and the recipient of antenatal care during pregnancy than their counterpart in Sudan and Egypt. However, with the lack of educational opportunities standing at one of the top drivers for child marriages, as indicated by UNICEF in their report, as well as UNFPA and several other organizations, including Oxfam, is also actually indicating this kind of disparity that perpetuate this phenomenon. And this explains the relatively low share of child marriages of Palestine in comparison with other countries. Also, the Palestinian children who were born for early married women are better in their health status and have lower rates of stunting, wasting, and child mortality relative to other countries like Egypt and Sudan. So it means that the Palestinian has more access to those health services, particularly related to maternal and child care. And across the countries, women who are married before the age of 18 have higher rates of husband polygyny, contraceptive usage, and tend to give birth to more children who later die relative to the women who were married between the age of 18 to 24. So we can see that the two groups that we have, the control and the reference groups, there was a kind of disparity, and the rate of child mortality was much higher for the first group. And over empirical results also shows that the phenomena of child marriage is associated with more vulnerable health outcomes for both the mother and their children across 3 countries. Regarding their health indicators, responded with child marriage in Egypt are more likely than women who were already married to have stunted and wasted children. Similarly, children who were born by early married Palestinian women are more likely to be stunted relatively to the other women children. And also, the early married women from 3 countries tend to have children with higher under 5 mortality rate relative to the other woman group. And if we adjust the estimation using the set of socioeconomic and demographic characteristics of married women, the significant association between child marriage and under 5 mortality rates hold across all countries. So this was one of our motive that what is the health repercussion of early child marriages, and it was statistically significant. While regarding the association between child marriages, stunting, and wasting in adjusted model, this relation become insignificant, except for stunting rate in case of Palestine. So there was kind of insignificance when we adjusted some of the variables related to stunting and wasting. Regarding the women in health indicator, early married women are more likely to have children who later die than the other women group across all countries at both the basic and adjusted model. Finally, the child marriage is significantly associated with decreased likelihood of receiving any form of antenatal care in Egypt, and even after adjustment for other control variable, a similar reduced likelihood is observed in Sudan and Palestine as well. So what is the recommendation and policy and program strategies that we have to adopt? So I would like to quote a famous poet, Ibrahim, who once said that a mother is a school. Whenever you equipped her well, you prepare a nation with a fine race. So therefore, we recommend that the government and public communities should pay a close attention to improving the widespread availability and affordability of education for girls and women nationwide. Regardless of their residence of area and level of income, subsidizing the income transfer program should make sure that girls continue their education and they do not leave schools due to income constraints, availability and reachability of schools, health facilities, and they should have constant advice and guidance through all communication means, including social media and television and radio. Within the MENA region, that has the lowest global share of female literacy, Palestinian women are classified as the best educated according to the Royal Academy of Science National Trust. Since better education attainment of Palestinian women explain the low prevalence of child marriages and for the women and children to have relatively lower health deprivation related to their counterparts in other countries, therefore, better educated women are not only capable of better caring about their health and the health of their children, but also they are the better wives, citizen, and catalyst for the development of their nation. At the same time, we propose that we should develop or even use the existing laws against child marriages to curb this menace, and it should be enforced, especially when girls at the risk of child marriages or who are already married seek protection, justice, and access to information related to health. And where it is not yet the case, the legal age of the marriage should be raised to 18 without exception. So there were some kind of maybe questions, but at the same time, we found some kind of limitation. And this means that we cannot generalize this research to other countries or maybe within countries. So first of all, our analysis involved a cross-sectional analysis, so we cannot assess a causality based on our finding. Second thing, we investigated women groups who were married until the age of 24, so we cannot generalize our result to the other women groups in any of these countries. Although the time span of each country differ depending on the most recent available version of mixed database from UNICEF, however, the temporal differences are not that much large. So nevertheless, our results regarding comparing these 3 countries should be treated with caution. Furthermore, research can be extended and expanded in this line of research in MENA region or in Asian region by mimicking similar studies in other part of the world on the association between child marriage and other social health indicators such as husband violence, intimate partner violence, which we call it gender-based violence, the nature of assistant at delivery, and the pace of delivery, as well as how the telecommunication means can actually help in reducing these kind of health disparity. And therefore, since this is a part of our research at MSR, we are actually planning to conduct a similar research in Pakistan using a microdata that will be collected from 2,000 responding across 4 districts, which are actually kind of, where the incident of child marriage is much higher. And then we will actually, compare our result with this study as well. And let's see how we come up with this kind of program solution to address this global issue. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any question, feedback, or comment, you can ask, or you can write to me at mohsen@msresearchhub.com. Thank you very much.
I have a little comment.
Yes, please.
It was a really interesting investigation. This is the first time that I see an investigation of these kind of topics, to be honest. I have a question regarding whether if the phenomenon of child marriage is something associated to the religious factors or maybe to the social customs. I don't know what is the main cause that drives into the child marriage phenomenon in your perspective.
Yes, I think very excellent. Yes, there are actually some research, and especially when we talk about Muslim countries, there is a kind of, a perception that you should marry earlier. However, if we see some of the African countries who are actually, they are not religious, they also had this kind of problem. So it could be a kind of, as I explained in the literature, that there are 3 kind of, drivers